One of the great things at my COMDET was we had a retired senior chief, Vince Garcio, and his family was from Sicily, and he was retired, and he worked at the NAVCOMDET as antenna maintenance and other maintenance. And his family, his wife's family, owned a pasta factory. And then somebody else, anyway, he would bring in this homemade sausage and start grilling it outside for all of us. Oh, I'll never forget that. It was so good. He's such a good man. I ended up, when I was there, living in a few different places. We started out on the beach, which had a beautiful view, but the house got broken into a few times and it made me nervous. And then we got a government move up to El Paso on Mount Etna, which is still active. It's coming down the other side, though. Again, you don't have central heat. We had the space heaters, and I remember my officer in charge of the COMDET lived in the apartment across from me, him and his wife, and they had 3 kids. You want to talk about, I'll never forget this night, space heaters. His wife's name was Marie, and one of the 3 boys, when you go into the bathroom, you take the space heater to keep the room warm. Well, the boys were drying off, and one that was tall enough, standing too close, got burnt. I'm so sorry. I helped watch the other kids while they took them to the base. Stories like that. They were such good people. And to this day, her name is Sarah Lee. She went LDO on me and is in Arkansas right now. We still stay in touch. She was my supervisor when I got there. And I have a good time wherever I am. I try to learn as much as I can. And it was a real small tech control there. I remember, we didn't have a hospital on Sicily. We had just a dispensary. So if anything was serious or something was wrong, or they would medevac you to Naples, to the hospital. Well, they did this with people that were pregnant too. What they would do is, like 2 weeks before your due date, they would send you up to Naples to wait. And at that time I said, I ain't doing that. So I decided I'm going back home. I want my mother. And I grew up near Andrews Air Force Base. There's a big hospital there. And ended up, I had both my children there. When I flew back when I was pregnant, I was over 8 months pregnant. I had no business being on a plane. Because one of the stewardesses made a comment, but it all worked out. I remember on that flight, my ex-husband, his officer in charge mother was visiting and was going back, and she was elderly, and they said, can you help her, go from here to Rome and then the connection? I said, oh, sure. So back then, gosh, it was in the 80s, so there was a lot going on in Europe, tension-wise, and the Carabinieri, the police, they all had rifles in the airport. And I remember we're in line, and she's ahead of me, and puts her stuff up there, and all these alarms start going off. And we got 6 Carabinieri with guns down on us like this. And I'm going, what the hell does she have? What is going on? I was a little scared. I opened up her bag. It was pinking shears. Oh my goodness. I told my husband, I said, I got her home, but boy, did it create a commotion. I ended up getting orders, transferring, and I was leaving ahead of my husband, and we had orders to the same base. Well, my job in communications, I got connected with the operators to where I could make phone calls almost to anywhere. So, and being from near D.C., I was born and raised in D.C., born in D.C., I got to physically go in and meet the detailers. And detailers are the people that cut your orders, okay? I had my orders changed to Hawaii. and at this point, I was going to get divorced. I was so miserable. I had the 2 kids and go to Hawaii. And then I called back and I said, guess what? I'm not coming back. I'm not going to where you're going. So I get transferred to Naval Area Master Station, East Pac, Waihawa, Hawaii. Well, there's a lot of communication stations in Hawaii. I mean, places you can work. That's Area Master Station is the big one. And they always put communication stations away from everything. They're not close, middle. No, like if you talk to somebody that's been at Harold E. Holt, you think Australia, oh my gosh, so beautiful. They're on the opposite side where there's nothing. It's not like Sydney or someplace nice. And the same in the Philippines, Subic, but NAVCOM State Phil is far away. So in Hawaii, I started out, I got sent down island. They have what's called NTCCs. They're small comm units that support whatever is local. So my first one was at Pearl Harbor. And actually, it was called, it was funny how Pearl Harbor, they used like 3-letter, like for Pearl Harbor, it was P-O-O, Poo. Camp Smith was Sioux, S-O-O-O. Fort Island was Foo, F-O-O. That's how it was all designated. So I started out down at Pearl Harbor in tech control, and it was small. Again, and I liked the small ones too. You just got really close and tight with everybody because you had the technical control and then the message center, and you supported different units. And like for Pearl Harbor, the different commands down there would come and get their message traffic, from our location. I established real good friendships there. Well, I went from there. To Camp. Was it Camp Smith? Yeah. Camp Smith was kind of joint. It had Marines too, where I worked. Well, my ex-husband decided he was going to follow me to Hawaii, and to do that, he became a flight engineer. Because in Hawaii, there's a lot of BP squadrons, like in Barbers Point, so you can bounce from one to another. And that's considered sea duty because they deploy to ADAC or Okinawa for 6 months at a time. Well, radiomen work crazy, oh my goodness, crazy shifts. And it's that way anywhere radiomen go. And the schedule, it's called a 2-2-2-80. You work 2 days, 2 mids, and 2 eves, which doesn't sound too bad. But you go in the first one from 6 to 2, okay? The next thing, 6 to 2, go back in at 10 at night to 6 in the morning. Go back in that night at 10 to 6 in the morning. Get off at 6 in the morning. Go back in at 2 in the afternoon, and then do it again from 2 to 10. And then you're off for a few days. You don't know what day is what. And with children, you have to have somebody there while you're sleeping, because you're sleeping in the day before you have to go to work, and while you're working. And it gets hard. Even though when you're in government housing, people really help each other because the dependent wives babysit people that, if they're deployed or during weird hours. We're all there for each other, but it's still, and it can get costly. So, dumb shit me, I asked him, I said, can you just help me with the kids when I'm working? Well, kind of let him with his foot in the door and started listening to all the bullshit. And I said I let him back in my life and ended up getting remarried. Well, my girlfriend, Lori was her name, she goes, Obie, if you took milk out of the refrigerator and put it back in, would you? If you took milk out of the refrigerator and it was bad, would you put it back in hoping tomorrow it was going to be okay when you took it out? You know, well, I didn't listen to her advice. I wish I had. But it did work out, I said, as far as him helping with kids, but his behavior for 3 months was fine, and then went right back to the drinking, and it was just miserable. But I wasn't going to put my kids through another divorce, so I made a promise I would stay until my son graduated, which I did. And anyway, I was a first class, working on trying to become a chief. I loved Hawaii. The people, the lifestyle is so kicked back. Nobody's in a hurry. It's just, and the warm people, the locals are warm. Some people say they have problems, you know, or they get rock fever. Well, I'm not one that wanted to drive 300 miles to get somewhere. You know, I love tropical weather. I like island life. The work, like I said, I went from the small. Oh, I'm sorry. I went from Pearl Harbor up the hill to Makalapa. Sink Pack Fleet. That's where they were. That was what we supported. All the admirals. All the admirals' quarters were up there too, and we were down in a tunnel, in the basement, in a tunnel. Again, a small, where we just supported the officers and the people in the building with their messages, and it was, I'll never forget. I said I was in charge of, part of my job was taking care of secure telephones, and all the admirals had the big, they were called KY3s, these secure COMM big cases for secure telephones. Oh, it was the crypto that was in it, which we had to remove if they were going someplace. You couldn't leave it in there. So if it was 2 o'clock in the morning, you went up to their quarters and had to do what you did. But I always got good food because the stewards that take care of the admirals, they're not called that anymore, by the way, and they were usually Filipinos, always had good food. So I always got in good with them. It's who you know. But I'll never, this one admiral story, constantly called when I was on watch that his phone wasn't working. And I had to carry this big toolbox with me, go up there, nothing wrong. So I think about the third or fourth time I said, Admiral, if you want to shoot the shit with me, that's one thing, but don't make me carry this damn toolbox up here. This is way before they ever talked about problems with fraternization or saying anything wrong, you know. They were good times. You didn't have to worry about, like I said, I happen to be one of these people. I'm a hugger. I touch everybody. You know, if I'm talking to you or something like that, I'll reach out. Well, now you'd be out on your butt. I mean, or fined or charged with something. I digress a little bit back to Master Chief McGowan and how I was treated and how other people treated me. When I was in Hawaii, I was more senior. I was in charge of people. I tried to give back. I always had the kids that worked for me, especially the single ones, at my place on off times, barbecuing. Or I love having people around. There's never too many. My door was always open. I still have that policy to people I know, veterans.